Bum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum,
Welcome back to SourceFed Nerd. Hey, it's kind of ForceFed.
Hey, wait a minute. What is this? 2014? What's going on over here? 15?
This was a lot. We did this a year ago, and we looked very different.
Guys, I'm Filup Molina. This is Steve Zaragoza, and then
dog?
you guys saw him real recently, so we don't miss him as much as. No offense.
I
No
miss
offense.
you.
What?
I miss you.
Nothing.
Too. I'm
And
Maude
then
Garrett.
the Obi-Wan and only Maude Garrett.
Darth Maud. Like Darth Maul or Maud Vader, but you guys, it doesn't make sense when you say it. Just when I say
Maude Vader.
it. Maud.
Yeah.
I am Maud
It's supposed to
Vader.
be like Lord.
Yeah.
Lord Vader, Mord.
Cool. So, guys, before we even say anything at all, if you have not seen Rogue One, this is the one time I'm gonna be like, don't watch this right now.
Scoot!
We're not
Get-
above virtually smacking you.
Get.
We're gonna spoil everything. We're gonna talk about every damn moment.
Yes. This
Yeah,
is for
we're
the
gonna
people
start
who've
from
seen
the
it.
end backwards, and that's all. We're reading the script.
Yeah.
So we've given you a chance.
We're doing a live read of Rogue One.
yeah. From memory.
From the end
Like,
going to the beginning.
It would be hope.
Ah, nice. Yeah. But
Okay.
it's based on hope.
Remember that scene where they said hope 12 times?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that an underlying theme of this movie?
I hope
no,
they wouldn't.
actually. Okay, cool. So first off, this is just going to be a review of The Force Awakens. Sorry, not Force Awakens, of Rogue One. I bet we're going to talk.
Awakens.
Yeah.
Stephen, I thought it was a little underwhelming.
I love Force Awakens.
I thought Rogue One was better than Force Awakens.
It depends on what you were looking for from this movie. And that's going to be really interesting. I think we will end up comparing it because it's not a Star Wars movie. And that's actually, to me, one of the things that it did very well.
Yes.
Is that it expanded what a Star Wars movie can be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which they have to do because they're going to do an anthology where they're going to have Star Wars comedies and Star Wars,
We have to remember this
war
is
movies.
a different galaxy a long time ago, far away. It's not just the Skywalker family. It's
Right.
a whole galaxy to tap into.
Yeah, man. And
Right.
finally we get planets that aren't just deserts,
Yes.
which I love.
I love, yes,
You like
Garif
Scarif?
was
I
was
love that they were
beautiful.
at the Sandals
Scarif?
Resort.
I
at
said the
whole end of the
same
movie.
I was like, this is nice for the actors to just like enjoy
ooh,
this
hanging
too.
out in Cancun.
So
shooting
before-
some Star
Pow,
Destroyers.
pow.
Candace, get over here and talk about Rogue One with us.
Yeah, real quick, just in one sentence, your Star Wars Rogue One review.
I liked it, and I've seen only all the Star Wars movies once.
Only all of them.
Cool. So we're gonna real quick just give you our overall thoughts in case you're like, I didn't watch it, but I'm a glut for pain.
Matthew, Cody, and I. Spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. Yeah.
I see you, baby. I see you.
So just like overall thoughts, we won't get too much into the big spoilers right now. Maude, what'd you think?
All right, my overall thoughts, I thought that they successfully kept it a Star Wars movie and kept the feel, but completely and successfully changed the tone of the movie, which I very much appreciated. I think that there was a bit of overuse in CGI in some cases. I thought that the second half of the movie was a lot better than the first half of the movie, but I loved that it was a standalone, self-contained story where the stakes were incredibly high and the battle sequences are there, and I cried. I've seen it twice now.
I couldn't imagine where you were crying.
So I cried 4 times the first time I saw
can.
it, and then the second time I saw it, I only cried once, but it was actually more than all the 4 times together.
And we'll talk
combined.
about those in a second, but I agree with pretty much everything you said, and I'm really impressed that a movie that I'll agree, and this is kind of my overall thought here right now, that didn't start out the strongest movie actually comes back and ends up being like a really good movie, and that's really rare where you're like, hey, I'm not loving Act 1. And then you're like, oh, crap, I love it by the end.
Yes.
So, but I mostly agree with what she was saying. Steve, what'd you think?
I thought it was a great Star War. I thought the story is really cool because it's like, if you love Star Wars at all, you know that the story of this movie happened for sure. Like in the lineage of the Star Wars story, this really fucked up thing where it was just a suicide mission happened
Suicide
in the
Squad.
history of Star Wars. And I feel like seeing it is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
really fucked up, and it's a tragic story, but it's a hopeful story. And I also feel like, kind of to close out my thoughts, because I'm going to be all over the place, it's really like an expanded universe novel turned into a movie.
It is.
Which I think is great. I grew up reading a lot of the Timothy Zahn books and
Yes.
stuff, and I feel like it's kind of like it's really just a fan movie. Like, more than anything, I feel like.
There were
But
some,
without as much fan service as
I don't know
Force
about
Awakens,
that,
as Force
baby.
Awakens.
I feel like there were...
There was I
Maybe
can
there
count
weren't
the
maybe
fan
there
service
weren't
moments.
more nods, but the nods in this movie were so intense that it like
were
overshadowed
great.
every bit in Force
See, I think there's going to be a rift in our nation about whether
There
or
might
not
be a rift in our
whether or not
nation.
it needed those.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I think we didn't need any of the fan service
But
stuff.
you know what? My friend doesn't like you.
I was just like, I pulled out my member berries. Member the cantina.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, oh, no,
So here's
here
the
we
thing:
go.
you're totally right. Did not need those moments.
Yeah.
You're totally right that you like
I
got
wanted those
goosebumps
moments.
when you saw them.
Yes.
It's kind of like when dessert shows up at school or something. You're like,
Right.
what? I didn't think we get dessert today, but I'm also overweight, so I don't need it.
Yeah. Or like we just ate. It's like
Yeah,
it's like
you're like, oh, thanks.
It's like here at the SourceFed office for birthdays, like we do cakes. We do like cake
do.
for everybody's
Yeah.
birthdays. Like the month of June, everyone's birthdays. But it's like right before lunch. And
Right.
it's like, who
And you brought
who
lunch.
planned this?
That's
We're
not-
about to go to lunch and you're going to feed us cakes?
Not the best
The-
analogy. It wasn't, but that's cool, guys.
I think we can say
No,
this
because it's
analogy.
like-
Let's keep going
Like,
on
we
it.
love cake.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And we love to eat the hell out of it.
Do you get the cake as
but
Star
we
Wars?
also were supposed to go to
no,
lunch.
I got I like ice cream cake.
Ice cream on a bagel is what Maude is having right now.
Hell yeah.
That's just an
When ice
unhealthy
cream's
amount
on a
of cream.
bagel. Okay, so let's go ahead and like now really get into this thing and just start going over the plot. So you said something really interesting a second ago. You were like, this is a thing that we all know happened
Yes.
as fans.
Yeah.
Here's something really like tragic and heartbreaking. In their universe, no one will know these people's story. They just know, oh, they got the plans.
It's
Yes.
like a rebellion, like tale, like a legend of the rebellion.
Yeah,
Yes.
but like the details of K2SO's sacrifice and,
Yeah.
and Bodhi trying to make the connection and stuff, no one will ever know that story.
Well, it is pretty like intense. Like I feel like, unfortunately, and maybe fortunately for a lot of people, this is about as dark as a Star Wars movie will probably ever get. Like
Sure.
I feel like
It is,
it's
yes.
like every main character dies. Every single one. You fall in love with all these characters, and it's like, nope, they're dead at the end of the movie, basically, including the cool droid that I loved the whole time,
Yes.
basically. But it's like it's very tragic and dark. But I feel like, man, we could have gone darker. I feel like.
Honestly, I gotta applaud Disney for letting it.
Yeah,
get
yeah,
this dark,
but it's like calculated darkness.
Do you want to hear the
Oh, yeah.
alternative
the most we
ending?
can take.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Yes,
the
please.
news that there was constant reshoots and that
Yeah,
they
which
watched
there
it?
still were, and it was about the ending. And they did do it. Kathleen
Was it about
Kennedy.
rushing the hell out of that whole end?
Maybe Tony Gilroy came in and did rewrites and also took over the edit at the end there, specifically for that third act. But what'd you hear was the
Vader
original?
wasn't ever supposed to be in it initially,
Mm.
and then they did decide to have Vader in it, and they all survived Scarif. And then when they were on the in the fleet getting out of there, Vader boarded it. and
He's
they
the
were,
one that takes him out.
Yep.
Oh,
they were all in
man.
the room and they thought they could talk their way out of the situation, and he slaughters all of them, the women, the children, all of them.
I remember
It
that
gets
bad
everywhere. I hate
yeah.
I wish he had just given that speech again as he's slaughtering them. Just okay, but let's start real easy back at the beginning of the movie. So we start with our flashback scene.
Too many flashbacks. Didn't need them. Just saw it. 12 minutes later, saw it again. Didn't need to.
Ooh.
I'm never a fan of
Are you talking
returning to
about
a
the
flashback.
end? Because the end was already done in Revenge of the Sith. You're right. We shouldn't have seen that again.
What? No, I'm talking
No,
about.
she's talking about the flashback
But
at
I'm
the beginning
saying,
comes back.
I know. I'm just bringing a passive-aggressive remark about how the end of this movie is exactly the same, almost as Revenge of the Sith. It's like we get to see the whole thing in the fucking Tantive and
no,
the
it's,
fucking like.
it's nothing like it.
Well,
except
it's like
for
we
maybe
see
Mustafar.
It's like you see all the guys in the
Right.
damn ship and Jimmy Smits, and it's like it's almost like the last prequel, Revenge of the Sith, was trying so hard to connect to A New
But
Hope.
that was 19
without
years
knowing,
earlier,
That's
right?
what I'm saying. Like without knowing there would be a better
Oh.
movie to bridge the movies, and it's like so we got to see all that shit again. Obviously better, way better in this one.
So much better.
But it's like it's kind of the same thing. I feel like flashbacks.
So flashback with the little version of Jyn
Jyn
Erso,
Erso.
though. I gotta say they're not the best children actors are never featured in Star Wars.
Really, I liked it. I thought
she was
good.
fine.
Yeah, I thought
She
was
looked
good.
like Felicity
Yes, she
Jones,
did.
which is
I
which
liked
is really
the
sweet.
whole beginning. I thought it was cool. I thought it was. Let's
Do you
see
count
another...
after the flashback's over as the beginning? Because that's where it started to actually lose me a little bit.
Yeah,
once we got to the normal.
Yeah. I liked seeing kind of like the weird planet they were on, like, and they were moisture evaporator people,
Right.
sort of, or like farmers basically, and the blue milk. I liked that stuff.
Yes.
Like that was
Right.
very.
Yep.
See, that's a subtle nod that I
Yes.
liked. That the blue milk was there.
Someone
but-
was saying though that Galen Erso, being played by Mads Mikkelsen, that Mads was he's too cold of a person for you to kind of like see and
I didn't get that.
buy into this father-daughter relationship.
He certainly plays in subtlety. Like his acting style is definitely not that like bombastic thing or
Oh
whatever.
my gosh, like Forrest
He's
Whitaker?
right here.
Simmer down, man. Simmer down.
Yeah,
Forrest-
well, he was
he's-
playing a guy who had freaking lost it.
Oh,
He
you didn't
definitely-
like his performance?
The first time it washed over me. By the second time I saw this movie, that irked me. Who came here?
Dude,
To kill me?
I thought
it's
it was
like
alright.
minutes past.
Yeah, kill me. Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, he was like not even a full dude anymore.
Yeah,
he's
he-
seen a lot of shit.
Are we not?
Yeah.
It's like he was basically like shell shocked from Nam. Like,
Right.
like you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Colonel Kurtz down there or something. But so early in that movie we see Jedha, and this is like something that we've never had in a Star Wars movie. But to me, I was like, I love acknowledgments of the like ancient ruins.
Yes.
Did you
Yeah,
guys
that was
notice
the
that
lightsaber
the
thing.
the
Jedi.
Jedi statue
Yes.
like
Yes.
buried? That to me, this movie did a lot of things to cement. Like we've always told you this. We've always told you the Empire and Darth Vader were terrifying. We prove it now. We've always told you that the Jedi are this historic thing that like was such a big deal, but it's like really we've only seen these tiny little
Yeah.
things,
Yes.
or we were in the middle of it, and for some reason the Jedi were like on Star Trek. It was a weird thing in the prequels. Here it felt like the right amount of like, yeah, there's ruins and there's temples and there's side churches
Yeah.
that we meet here with Chirrut Imwe and
And
Baze.
we got the idea of like followers of the Force,
Right.
or like kind of like you know, you get more of a sense of the religious aspect of the Force, and we got that in
Right.
Force Awakens with what's his name, Max von Sydow's character in the beginning.
Lord
of,
Santeca, right.
Yeah, in Force Awakens, but now we have this like blind dude who's like fully like a Force supporter, and then like even
Right.
in the beginning when like Jin's mom gives her the Force crystal
Yes.
and is like believe in the Force, it's like it's definitely like this. I love the kind of establishment of the Force as like a religion more
Right.
in this one than any other movie.
Okay, so I agree that the Force is definitely prevalent. Like they're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're, I'm one with the Force, all that kind of stuff. But they made it very clear that there were no more Jedi. Very
Yeah,
clear.
definitely.
Yeah,
And
which
that's
is
why
great,
also it has
which is
like
great.
spin-offs to the religion. Just like after Jesus Christ, we have like kind of like bastardizations of Christianity, and then if you're an American here, we have like all kinds of new people got worshipped and new religions spun off, and you can hear little bits of that happening where they don't worship exactly the same way. And so Chirrut, one of his first lines that we hear, if you're listening closely, he says, "May the force of others be with you." And that's what they say, and that's from the original take on "May the Force be with you." It was going to be that, but now it's like, oh, that makes sense. That like it's not this pure. They destroyed all the Jedi,
Yeah.
So why would it be like perfectly preserved?
Yeah,
it wouldn't be.
yeah.
It'd be adjustments
That's
on it
cool.
and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I really love that
Based
exploration.
on hearsay and like maybe old teachings of the Force.
Right, exactly. It actually, weirdly, even though this movie comes between episodes 3 and 4, it's a great segue to episode 7 too, where it's like, oh, right, it's all a myth. We don't even know if it was real.
Yeah.
You can kind of see why it was headed that way.
Well, and I like kind of how like everyone's. I mean, there's a lot of people that are like, was the blind guy? Was he like a Force sensitive?
To it. Okay,
Right,
so
he
we just had a
was.
comment right there from
Person or
Shrekums saying he wasn't Force sensitive, but he was one with the Force.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan even said in A New Hope, like it binds, or it was Yoda who says it binds us, and everyone.
Right.
The Force is just everywhere. There are people who are like
I'm one
Force
with the Force
sensitive,
yeah.
but it's like I feel like I think this character is proof that if you believe in the Force. And you kind of like, I don't know, you let the Force into your life or
Right.
something, then it can like actually kind of protect you.
He's kind of what we were as kids, because I'm sure you guys did the same thing where there was like the remote on the coffee table, and
you
you were
would
like,
just do that the whole
and
Yeah.
he's like, it kind of like worked out for him.
Yeah.
Do you
Definitely
think,
not a Jedi, though. A lot of people are having confusion. If he was
Definitely
an
not,
ex-Jedi,
yeah.
used to be a Jedi, never was.
He just
Never will be.
likes the Force.
Real nerdy question here. Do you guys think that he was lucky, or do you think that his belief in the Force was manipulating things around him?
I think the Force was kind of there
Protecting
for him.
him?
Yeah.
Well,
I
he trained as a protector of the Jedi Temple. So even though like there's no one training in there,
Yeah,
he was a
Guardian of the
protect-
Wills. I
That's
think,
it, the
or-
Wills, and and the Wills is not WILLS, it's WHI.
Wills.
Wills.
Yeah.
But obviously he's training like it's very Daredevil-esque, where it's like he can't see anything, so he would listen, and he would, you could hear the crunching of the sand and like the finger on the pulse.
He's better than Daredevil, dare I say.
I feel like
he's amazing in those fights.
the way that I feel about like my explanation in my head for him being protected by the Force when he was like walking through all the blaster fire and stuff was basically like, there are people who believe in that their religions kind of protect them, that whatever, that they have a faith that kind of helps them, maybe guides them in a way, and I feel like I equate it to that. Like if this is like a real thing here that people say like, well, I almost got into this wreck, but like, God was smiling down on me or whatever. I feel like it's kind of the equivalent of that in the Star Wars world, but we see it happen.
So I'll say that like if you watch this movie and you're like, finally a movie that's about, well, I'm quoting myself. I was about to make myself sound like an idiot. Finally a movie that's a war movie, but
finally a movie with a Jedi in it.
But you do want this movie to feel like a war movie, so I bet there are people that are like, oh, I kind of wish I had a little less of the Force. But if you remember that if you watch a World War II movie, these people are terrified and they kind of do this move. That's what they would do in their world, where it's like, look, I don't know if this kyber crystal does anything, but I'm going to wear it for like luck and hope.
And I want to bring up the kyber crystal that Jyn wears around her neck. Some people in the chat saying, well, does that mean Jin's mother was a Jedi?
No.
Okay, if she was a Jedi, one blaster to the shoulder wouldn't have killed her.
No.
She probably would have seen that coming.
Yes.
Yes, considering Chirrut Imwe freaking, like, he's dodging blasters as
And he took down a TIE fighter. This man is a goddamn hero.
Okay, there's a real specific moment in his main first fight. He dodges. I don't think anyone notices this. Remember Felicity Jones being held by one of the stormtroopers?
Yes.
Chirrut dodges another guy's blast in a way to get that guy shot.
Yes.
Until he gets like taken out. I was like,
Yeah.
He
That
can.
was cool.
You can see so much.
But he also like, I thought I was kind of like distracted by the moment when he's like holding that stormtrooper and the other stormtrooper is just shooting.
Yeah, and he's like,
and I'm like, why do you keep shooting your friend?
I had a separate issue with him. Like, I owed that guy money. Yeah.
That guy was an asshole.
Cool. So moving on a little bit, let's talk about some of the big battle scenes.
Amazing.
I'm totally at that point. I was like, holy shit! How did I forget that this movie was gonna Back to the Future 2 a little bit, Back to the Future 1, where it's like we're seeing an alternate angle on A New Hope. I know it doesn't take place exact same time, but it's the same ships, the same.
Yeah.
Like you're seeing these
And they're all
battles
done very
from like a new
well.
angle,
Yeah.
but in a 2016 way.
But it also feels like it like more so than the prequels ever did. That it was so connected to that like time.
purpose.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Like I feel like in even in Revenge of the Sith, I mean even in Phantom Menace, it's like the technology seems so advanced.
Yes.
Like
For
and
being
being before
Yeah.
A New Hope, when in A New Hope it's like literally someone's shit they found in the garage glued to like a drill or whatever.
But I noticed with that, trying to keep in the consistency and the tone, a lot of the actors had moustaches. They had very
Yeah.
The
They look
70s
70s.
look, which
Yeah.
was great.
Mon
So they were
Mothma,
really-
the actress who plays Mon Mothma's
Yes.
Yeah,
her
that 70s
costume
look.
is
But they
very
also brought back
70s,
Gold Leader as well. Did you
And
know?
Red Leader.
And Red
Yeah.
Leader.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
having,
So
like,
that was
those
actual
two-
footage, though. That was like footage from back then.
So I
that
heard a
they'd been,
story
like,
about
restored. Go ahead.
that with Gold Leader. I can't remember the actor's name, but they called him up being like, we'd love to get you back in the movie, and we're probably going to put you in the movie. He's like, really? And he's like, yeah, are you on board? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, oh my gosh, we might not get him back. What are we going to do if we can't get his authentic voice? And they're like, well, we'll email you the script. What's your email? And he's like, it's Gold Leader Forever, and like a number. And they're like, oh yeah, we've got this guy. We've got it.
Gold Leader Forever. Which I bet he doesn't even, he had a number at the end, so he wasn't even the only Gold Leader Forever, even though he's Gold Leader Forever.
But those
that was
nods,
great.
like you were saying that some of the nods were a little bit pandering to an audience. I thought that was fantastic.
So that's what I mean, where it's like the Back to the Future angle, where it's like the same people from another side, and like that's the exact kind of fan service I
Yeah.
But
wanted.
having Red 5 there and him dying, and it's like, well, it's opened up a position for a Red 5.
Yeah.
Who could it be?
Who could be Red
Who could
5?
it be, Luke?
Listen, as far as the battles are concerned, for me personally, I felt like the ground battle stuff was like, seen it.
Oh, come
I was
on.
more
The
about
the AT-AT coming out of the mist. Are you kidding?
I mean, whatever. It's fine. AT-AT is fine. But what I liked
AT-AT.
more was the space stuff, the ship stuff. Like, I thought I saw stuff that I have never seen, like a Star Destroyer blocking ships from going into hyperspace.
That was
Yes.
nuts. That was so
cool.
nuts.
Using was that the why? What was that?
The hammerhead.
Using the hammerhead to push because they just they used
that
ion
was
cannons
cool.
to
That
disable
was
the entire Star
Right.
Destroyer.
So
and they
that's
used
all
that as a
connections to
weapon.
Rebels
Dude,
too.
that stuff,
that was
like all of
great.
that
Okay,
stuff
how-
was so fucking
How
cool.
awesome is one thing that the 2010s does really well now with destruction, and you can compare it to the 80s, is things used to just touch and explode.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh
Yeah.
no, it exploded. There's no explosions
No.
when that happens. It just, it's like the iceberg hitting the Titanic
Yes.
and just like separating it. And then it's just this mess in space.
Yeah.
Which is like just amazing to look at. I actually really bought that whole thing of that's how they take down the shield.
I thought that was
totally worked for me.
amazing, that whole thing.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you on the ground battle stuff. I'll say, yeah, we've seen it on Earth, but because we've never seen it in Star Wars from the angle of the trenches, you've only seen like video games, like really.
I mean, it had like a Saving Private Ryan.
Exactly.
feel to it,
Yeah,
but it's
loved
like,
it.
But I've seen Saving Private Ryan.
right.
you haven't seen it in Star Wars.
I know,
Which
but it's like, yeah, if you've
that's a
played
slippery
the games,
slope.
you've seen it. If you've played,
But you
like,
might not have.
I have a high, like, I don't know. It's like because it's like a Star Wars story. It's not part of the main saga. Like, I had
this was
so
a-
high hopes for them to try new shit, and they really did. Like the stuff they were doing with the spaceships and the Star Destroyers and like that stuff was so cool. I have never seen that in a Star Wars movie, but it's like I personally expect there to be like, let's see some ground battle stuff we've never seen before. I've seen the blind dude kicking ass in Daredevil. I've seen the fucking guy laying waste to a bunch of like people and like I want to see new things.
I think they took a lot of risks.
I think they did too,
Absolutely, I
and I think
agree with that. I agree
it's
with
tough. So I have a video coming out soon that's like everything that Star Wars has ripped off, and it's like every
was
single
influenced
movie.
by.
Well, and I will admit it in that it's but every single movie like definitely borrows or steals from something, and the way I feel like they get away with it is because it's in Star Wars. Like that
Yes.
is the new context.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
So
new
it is
Force
like,
Souls.
oh, I didn't. You know what? The rebels here felt like terrorists. And like that might be like an alarming thing
No,
to
but
say,
they
but they
have-
should feel that way.
But
Yeah.
when in that first initial on Jeddah, when they
Yeah,
were
exactly.
the infiltration, and it was like the sneaky snipers
It
coming
looks
in,
like the Middle
bombs.
East, you know,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so and they did. Here's something I really love. They separated the full rebellion from the extremists, Saw Gerrera's
Yes,
extremists.
yes.
And those people are behaving in a way that is maybe too far, but also maybe how rebellions win. At times it
Yeah.
gets like really dark, and I feel like even though, of course, we've seen that, we live that when we watch the news, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, in Star Wars, it was almost fake of Star Wars to not show that. It needed to show
yeah,
that.
I mean that stuff, the like the Desert Storm-esque,
Right.
like you know, like the stuff that we've seen in our own world, translating into a Star Wars story. Yeah, like I agree, that's cool stuff. Like seeing them infiltrate that little city and throwing bombs and shit. Like, yes, I agree, that's awesome. But it's like once we get into like the big battle moments, it's like. What I look forward to the most when it's just like, because really all it is like guys shooting guys, and that's all that is. That's all that can be. Like in the script, it's probably just like, and then they battle for like 13 pages or something.
Right.
But it's like, I just, what I look forward to the most is like kind of like unique ways to do that. Because it's like, we've seen a million war movies, we've seen a million battles.
A guy
we've seen a
takes
million
out
Star
two
Wars
stormtroopers
battles.
with a stick.
Well, but it's like I've watched Daredevil and I've seen some cool moments where a dude hits people with
I
a
getcha,
stick.
I getcha.
You know what I mean? Like I just
But this is what happens when you normalize people. This is what happens
Yeah.
when you don't have force powers.
Yeah.
You only have a
Right,
blaster.
that's kind of
you have
a point I was
charged
gonna make. Where it's
blaster.
like there's no magic in this movie, and by design, so it does really limit. It's like, well, what are humans capable of?
Yeah.
And in the history of cinema, we've kind of explored that a lot. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not in Star Wars.
but
so
it's
much.
cool that it's like a grittier take on like the
Yes.
ground battles. Like you're right there with these rebels.
Yes.
And that's
Which I love
that's
that.
cool. Like
Yeah.
you're right. If someone was like, they're gonna make a Saving Private Ryan Star Wars movie, I'd be like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like yes, but it's like kind of let's see some new ways to like kill people because it really is just killing people. You know.
Well, so speaking of that, let's go ahead and jump toward the last act of the movie. I mean, we kind of are there, but let's talk about
what?
Can Maude use her real voice? Do you remember that?
Oh, great! Way back. Oh my god. Dude, you guys are pulling out some real good ones.
old refies.
That's some old refies, baby.
That's
Love it.
also
Peace to the old refers.
the laugh from Star Wars too.
Great.
Jumping to the ending that we didn't necessarily think we were gonna get because the movie kind of ends and then you get this whole bonus thing with
You get
Darth
a
Vader.
super accelerated moment with Darth Vader.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about that.
Best part of the movie. Best
Yeah.
5 minutes of the whole movie. God damn, it was good. This is the first time we actually saw Vader, who was frightening, who was fear-inducing. My favorite line in this whole movie was when they were targeting the Death Star, and they're like, "Do you want us to target the Rebel fleet?" And he said, "No. Vader will take care of the fleet.
Yeah.
One man will take care of the
Yeah.
entire Rebel fleet."
Well, and you get
And you see it.
And in A New Hope, you sense that everybody's afraid of Darth Vader, and in the Empire, they're very afraid of him. But like all he really does is like he chokes a guy or like whatever, or
Slices him in half afterwards.
Well,
But
he means in
I'm talking about
in
in
the
A
old
New
ones.
Hope.
Oh,
in
yes.
this
Right.
one, it's like we see why they are fucking scared to shit of Vader.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
like
it's
he
great.
really he really just pulls out all the fucking.
Oh
punches.
my God, it
But-
was
but,
amazing.
But like, okay, as fucking amazing as that scene was, in
Yeah.
every way,
Which
very
I'll say
cool.
the best Star Wars scene I've ever seen,
very,
maybe.
Yes,
It's
very
right there.
fucking cool. It just I just feel like if you were watching this, if you had never seen the Star Wars movies and you're a kid and you saw Rogue One and then you go like, "Oh, I want to see more," and their parents are like, "All right, let's watch A New Hope."
You'll be disappointed.
Vader's fighting styles or Vader's like badassdom does totally.
Well,
not
you didn't
match
notice
up.
like on the way out he stubbed his toe and he's like fucked for the next like 3 movies. Like
He
"Ah!"
injured himself.
Oh.
See, that would have been cool if he had gotten some sort of injury. Then you'd be like, okay, well, he's like holding
gonna
back.
slow down,
Because
yeah.
there's that moment when he's in the Tantive in A New Hope, and he's like, just like some foreboding dude. He's not like
Right.
fucking force throwing shit and fucking getting his lightsaber
I guess
out
if
and
you
stuff.
stitch these 2 moments together, you could almost imagine under the mask. He's like, "Oh shit! Oh fuck! Oh god! I can't believe I just did all that!"
Mask off. Oh, I haven't done that in years. Yeah,
But at the same time, in A New Hope, Vader's never really taking on 19 people at one time. So maybe he's just like, yawning, because it's
It's true.
minimal
I mean,
effort.
I just
Yeah,
I think
he literally does do one-handed fighting for most of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't even think anyone's a big deal.
That's it.
I just feel like it's like you if you're gonna really nitpick fighting styles, it just doesn't mimic it at all when he's fighting Obi-Wan in A New Hope.
But if there's a preference
to
of getting
Jedi,
clunky
yeah.
again or getting what we saw, what would
Right.
you rather?
I mean, I think it's really cool, but I honestly, like, the scene's amazing. I'm getting excited. I'm too excited. The scene's amazing.
Drop
It's
the
awesome. I
lightsaber.
wouldn't change it, but it's like, if I had the chance to kind of be in that writer's room, I'd be like, can we just try and see what it would be like? Because we've already matched up the style of the 70s and the old ships and, like, a really, really cool visual elements that match up with A New Hope so perfectly. Well, let's see what it would be like to kind of match up Vader's fighting style with A New Hope.
So I like more what you said earlier, though, instead of match, cause. Like in the same way that they
Yeah,
solved the
yeah.
issue with the Death Star, the thing that's been hanging in there for 30 years of why would you make such a critical flaw in this amazing
Yeah.
space station? And
Every
they
time.
solved it. Right.
Every fucking time.
And they're like, well, it's integral to the plans. He
Yeah.
designed it to be destroyed. I like what you were saying, where it's like, what if he did suffer a critical injury at the
Yeah, I
hands
would have
of
liked
Jin or
that.
something?
I would have loved that because then you would have had that kind of moment where it's like, oh, now this is why he's subdued in A New Hope.
Yeah, okay.
Badass scene though.
Can we talk about Vader making a pun?
Of course we can.
Oh no!
I'm not
I
surprised
need to
it's
leave
coming
the room
up.
for this.
Go ahead, take it.
The moments that he has with Krennic, and this is something that
Did
I
you
don't know.
jizz?
I was very happy about that one. What I loved that we got in this movie that we've never really seen is the internal struggles between the rebels, where they're having the Jedi Council and they're not actually agreeing on things, and they can't see eye to eye on a lot. But also in the Empire, in the Imperial forces, where you're seeing 2 people, Tarkin and Krennic, climbing the ranks and
You
wanting
see them
respect.
Tarkin to each other.
Tarkin.
Tarkin. Sorry. Oh my god.
You choked on your bad joke.
Well, we're talking about puns.
I don't think that pun was nailed. I'm gonna say that. I just felt like it was a little bit like.
Agreed. I
Like,
thought it was out of place.
he was-
Vader's never made a joke. He never made another pun.
But here is the okay. I don't know if you noticed, but just before that, Krennic was yelling at him, trying to say, "No, you haven't you haven't seen the potential of this thing, and I'm the blah, 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 blah." And he just goes, "Shut the fuck up."
Which
Yeah.
I would have preferred him saying.
Yes.
Power play.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But you're choking on your
But-
aspirations.
Because like if
Yeah,
you're that
yeah.
guy, don't you like later? Don't you come out of that scene and go like, "Oh, thank God I'm alive. Oh fuck, that was crazy. God, force choking is fucking crazy weird." And and then you go like, did he make a
just
pun?
say-
He made a fucking, like I was afraid of that guy, and he's making puns.
Yeah.
Like,
I can scare people while cracking.
I like how many people are arguing that it's okay because he's a dad. And it's like, well, he is a dad, so it's a dad joke. He's about to meet his daughter in moments.
That's amazing.
he's testing out dad.
Yeah, exactly. I really want to
Like
impress
before
her.
the guy leaves, he goes like, hold on a second.
Yeah,
What'd
yeah,
you think of that
yeah.
pun? Good, bad, stop. There's no more puns, or
And they were like, no.
Yeah.
And then that's why you never heard another one
yeah,
again.
yeah. He's like,
What do you guys think of Vader in general in those scenes you're talking about? Both his like lines, his look. I felt like his lines. There were moments where I was like, "That sounds exactly like Vader," and there were other moments where I was like, "Who's that?" Like the
Oh,
voice.
the James Earl Jones?
Yeah,
I loved it.
Like I
thought
loved
was
it for he like nailed it, and then other times maybe it's just Vader doesn't have that many lines in the trilogy, in the original trilogy, that it's like. When the first time I've ever heard him kind of go up in the middle of a sentence, like, whoa, that was weird.
I felt like when because you have that voice actor that does Vader in the games, and it's like I remember when there was this whole thing about like this guy does Vader now, and he's the new Vader for all the Star Wars games. I always felt like that guy. He sounded very good, but you could tell it wasn't James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
But in this, it was like fucking perfect. Like I feel like they nailed it. Like his like.
It is James Earl Jones. Isn't
Well,
it?
It was
yeah,
James
but-
Earl
but
Jones.
it's
It was
like-
just like, did
but
it sound like Vader?
It
Yeah,
could
it's
have
fine.
very easily been like, oh man, it's James Earl Jones, but he sounds older.
What about the
But
fact
it's
that
like
we
it
saw
perfect-
Vader?
it was perfect.
Was he in a Bacta tank or was he in a?
He
non-
He was in a
was,
back
so-
to tank. It
Yeah.
looked like
He was.
yeah.
So let's talk about that moment, actually.
We talking about
is
Vader's
that-
house?
Yeah, is that Vader's house?
Vader's
and
house.
is it the same place where he was made into Vader, basically?
That's what I was
destroyed?
thinking. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
dude, isn't that triggering to live around lava, which is what made you who you are?
Maybe that's what he's
Yeah.
doing because he's fueled by anger.
Yeah, so maybe
if
just-
the place where he became a jelly bean, if he surrounds himself in that, he's constantly
Yeah.
fueling back his anger.
Mustafar.
Well,
Mustafar.
I don't think do you think it is Mustafar?
See, what I thought was very, very interesting was that we saw Edu, we saw Jeddah, we saw like every time they were on a different planet, and it was very in quick succession. It
They
always
had
said
the
it,
title, yeah.
except the last one.
Which is why I think it might be
is it
actually
Mustafar
that.
or is it Sullust?
Well, the thing that sucks is that we're not going to get a sequel to this,
Right.
No.
and we probably won't get any more prequels. So we're not really going to know, right?
Right.
Like, until
I have a
somebody
movie
writes
for
it
you
into
called
a
A New
book or
Hope,
something.
and I'll show it to
Oh, I'd
you.
love to see that.
See where
Do
the
they
story
show
goes.
Vader's house in that though,
Yeah,
dude? They don't. I'm saying
I
like they're
think
never
it's
going to
Mustafar.
show it. They're never going to talk about it.
Yeah. What's
Maybe in the comics they will. That'd be cool.
What's interesting though is I think you're right. Well, we're both right. It's where he he became Vader. So he's like, okay, this is me now.
Yeah, I
live
like
here.
the idea of him surrounding himself with
Yeah.
that like anger. That
if-
makes sense.
If you read Paul S. Kemp's Lords of the Sith, it's basically talking about Vader and the Emperor before A New Hope, and while the Death Star's being built as well. Or no, directly after the first Death Star blew up, it takes place, and you see them together, and the Emperor will purposely push buttons to keep Vader in an angry place. Yeah, those ones. Boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
his chest.
This is why you have those. Yeah.
I'm angry.
Yeah.
But
There's one with a laugh track for when he says puns.
When the Emperor's when Vader
When he does a pun, yeah. When he does a pun, it just goes.
I saw you hit that button. no,
no,
that was
people were
organic laughter. Just canned. Okay, cool. So,
That's true. Young Solo is a prequel, the Young Solo movie, but I doubt we'll see
yeah,
Vader's
house.
I doubt it.
I feel like they might not go to Vader's house.
might not. Although, I
In
mean, the
Solo
way that they
movie.
fit Vader into this, maybe they'll be like, "Fuck, we need Vader in this one too."
I wouldn't fight it. In fact, that's the one part of the movie I wish was longer. Was just that section there. Like,
Yeah.
it goes so fast. And you're like, holy
I
shit.
think it's a
Isn't
perfect
it
ending of the
weird
movie.
though that it's like the Vader stuff is arguably the best stuff about Rogue One, and it's the last stuff they added in? Like,
Yeah.
what kind of a movie would it have been had it not had Vader in it? It would have just been like,
Not
oh,
as
it's like
good.
It's like
Not
a
as
Saving
good.
Private Ryan Star Wars movie. That's cool.
And not as good as Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think we should go ahead and go into some of the characters and
Sure.
what was working and not working for us
Yep.
for some of them. Right off the bat, there's a real interesting choice. I want to get you guys' reaction. Cassian kills his informant.
Yes.
Shoots him in the back.
Yes,
Yeah.
because he was going to blab. It was to contain a secret.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that, though? We were
greater
talking a
good,
little
the
bit about,
greater
like,
The
we're
greater
seeing
good.
Greys in the Rebellion, we're seeing Greys in the
and
Empire.
he even says that. He goes, most of us have done awful things.
Yeah.
Right when he says that, there's a guy in, like, the third row that goes, yeah, fuck. What did that guy do?
I think it's like unfortunate, necessary trials of war,
Yeah.
basically.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you can. It's the only way. Like we're watching the rebellion rise to power. We're watching the rebellion win, sort of, or have a big win.
Have a chance, yeah.
Have a chance, and the reason why is because of hard shit like that.
Yeah.
So you have Cassian on that
I think
side.
Cassian killed him because he was a bad actor.
That
You know
was kind of
what?
overdoing
I thought
it
that
a
for a
little bit.
second. I was like, ugh.
At one stage, he does this.
I was like,
Oh,
what is
no.
this? He seemed like a side character in a Doctor Who episode. Like, I was like, oh no, don't do that.
And
Just
overall,
little planets.
you guys liked Cassian? You thought Cassian
Loved
was
him.
fun?
Yeah, he's great.
So great.
He's great.
Who's your favorite character from this one?
The robot.
K2SO. I think
Yeah.
steals
K2 and
every scene he's
Chirrut.
in. Chirrut Imwe is very charming. I would say K2SO weirdly charmed me more.
You know
Yeah, no,
what?
I
I
get
thought
it.
Jin was cool, but the whole like flipping up acrobatic thing, I was like, what's going on?
There's
here?
a weird thing where the only reason, there was multiple times where I was like, why is Jin good at this stuff? And then it's like they say that Saw raised her and she
trained
was
her.
We never
the
saw
best.
that. So my argument is,
Right.
I would, instead of seeing that flashback the second time, only 12 minutes later,
training?
I would have loved to have seen her
Or-
on the streets, living on the streets
Yeah.
by herself, stealing things.
Yeah, we
very
got Ray
kind of,
doing that in Force Awakens. Though.
That's true.
But she can't like osmosis. Like I did feel like
I think
Jin
that
just
line
didn't
was
have.
enough, though.
I see. I feel
don't
like
think that was
in
enough?
general, the whole movie, a lot of the characters got a line for backstory, and it kind of
Yes.
hurt. That's
Yeah.
why it didn't hit Saving
But
Private
it's
Ryan
such a
for me.
it's such a crammed it's a
Of course,
crammed
yeah.
tight movie.
2 hours and 18 minutes.
But it's also
Yeah.
like, and even though it's 2 hours and 18 minutes, there's still like so much.
Right, absolutely.
And like, you know, like you meet a lot of these characters in the same day almost, and then they die, and you're supposed to have this
Yeah.
big emotional reaction
Right.
for it.
well,
and
if you
it's like,
me, it worked.
But
yeah, it worked.
Well,
It all
I'm
it all
very-
cried a
actually
couple
works.
times. Yeah.
Oh my
But it's
God,
like
yeah.
you can't cram this rich kind of character background into this movie because you've got to get it going. Like you can't have all this
That
Jin
said,
stuff
you know, I
going.
mean, this is one thing that I always do, and people can disagree with me. I always say make it longer for better characters. Saving Private Ryan is not a short movie, but when those characters go down, Caparzo, like I can still remember those moments because I've like attached myself to them. These characters, even sticking with Jin, so we're told she was the best at 16, and then we get a list of crimes she's committed. Like
Yeah.
she's good at forgery. That's
That's
kind
it.
of all we know
Yeah,
of why
yeah.
she's good.
and then you see her in action, and Cassian's like,
She has
"Whoa."
one decent fight.
That's it.
Chirrut Imwe and Baze Malbus, they also are badasses and they totally prove it, but their backstory is one sentence deep.
We
It's
are
where the Guardians is.
protector.
He used to be the most, but now he's not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like that. Bodhi, who has a really great arc if you think about it, he has essentially the Finn arc
Yeah.
of like, oh, I worked for them and then I realized I made this huge mistake. We don't actually get any of that.
No,
right?
the only story that we got was him saying, Galen said that I
Right.
could account for everything, and
Right.
you know,
And it's like, oh, so you feel bad about that. It's good to
Yeah.
know. Like,
Yeah.
thank God I had that one line. So they kind of just did a couple of different little one lines here and there that if they hadn't had them would have been very bad, but it wasn't enough for me to ever fall in love with these characters. But I weirdly was still charmed by K2SO specifically.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's the saddest death you feel in the movie.
I agree.
Like, that's the one
Yeah.
where, did you cry at that? At K2SO dying?
no.
What? That's
I mean,
one
I
of the
didn't-
moments I was like, oh, she probably cried at K2SO
I didn't
dying.
like. I
Yeah.
didn't like that. I didn't like it, but it had to happen.
See, the other
Yeah.
deaths, it felt like a little
Johnny
like,
Yen, I cried.
yeah,
I
that was-
cried then because they hammed that. That
I've
was like-
cried at a fucking Puppy Chow commercial, and I did not even get teary in this.
Did you have these? I was having thoughts there like, oh no, not him too. You
Well,
know,
I
like
was
that's
just
kind of like as
yeah.
much
Well,
as it
you
got out
know
of me.
they're all
two of
gonna
them-
die. You
Two
go
of them
into
died
that
from a
movie
bomb.
knowing.
And I was
Right.
like, God,
Yeah.
stop throwing these bombs.
Yeah.
Right. It kind of reminds me of the actor that plays K2SO.
Alan
Oh,
Tudyk.
Alan
Tudyk,
Tudyk's spoilers. No, I won't even say what property. Just something else he dies in, and it's also very.
Oh please, the
very
statute of limitations
su-
on that is way out.
Yeah.
It's just so sudden.
leaf
Like
on the
these like
wing.
sudden deaths really ground war for me. Like
Yeah.
where like sometimes people just get shot in the freaking head, and like
Yeah.
that's it. You don't always get the Chirrut Imwe death.
Yeah.
So also other characters, Saw Gerrera. I think that's a character that I'm really happy they took from the canon because if it hadn't been a canonical character, it would have been kind of a useless character.
Can I
Is
just
that
point
like a
out,
Rebels?
Michael
Yeah,
Conroy
isn't
in
there?
the comments hates the movie, hates everything about it, disagrees with everyone. I think he needs to get laid. So I just wanted to stop the show just to say that.
I'm gonna
Get
say
laid with
that's.
it to a Star Wars fan.
Can I just say that's like the nicest, like best way to respond to someone being negative
man,
ever? It's like,
get
hey,
laid.
get laid. And it's like, okay.
Have a little bit more sex.
Yeah.
If you
I want to
or
get
a bit of time alone.
laid instead of like get fucked, get laid.
Yeah. Like best of luck to you out
like
there.
that.
Have you
Go
tried
have
Bumble?
sex.
Anyway, keep going.
So I think we kind of like hit these characters where like they felt a little disposable I mean, kind of literally too.
Well, they're all they're gonna die.
Yeah, but could you imagine though if you'd fallen in love with them and then they died? Where it's just like I'd be in tears.
No, or something.
And that's the first half of the movie that I'm talking about, where I think they could have played their exposition a little bit better to get that reaction.
Yeah. You guys, okay, weird movie to bring up right now, but did you guys ever see, is it Flight 93 or United 93 or something?
Yeah.
So that's a movie where you know everyone in this movie is going to die.
Or like Titanic. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
But
Titanic, I think, is a great example because the first half is very light, fluffy, and then shit goes down.
Yeah.
And
But you
it
fall
becomes
in
a
love with them.
tragedy.
You fall in love with Leo DiCaprio freaking not knowing which fork to use. You know what I mean? Like,
you're
those
like,
kinds
he's
of choices.
relatable. I don't understand this rich person life.
And so I think, like, what the hell? Let's embrace negativity just for a moment right now, even though we're not going to stay that way. And just some things we didn't think worked with the movie.
Oh boy, you ready?
So, but really quick, we were just talking about...
Rapid fire, here we go.
Who were we just talking about?
We're talking about Tarkin and Leia? Is that
Yes.
Well, no, before that. Who were we just
R2
talking
and
about?
3PO?
A second ago.
Tarkin? Oh, the guy from Rebels?
Bodhi?
No. Forget it. Let's move on to
Great.
just Tarkin. CGI faces.
Yeah.
Yay. Oh boy. I thought, actually, okay. Legitimately, Tarkin, I thought, was like such a cool reveal. Like, I had no idea who was in this, and I think that was not spoiled for me.
And it a lot.
And that I thought, like, part of me felt like, you know, you could see his reflection before you actually see him in the glass. And I was like, oh my god, that would be so cool if he's just alluded to. You don't really see his face fully because, like, I just didn't want. I don't think the technology's there yet.
When it was the reflection and hearing his voice, the voice
it was
acting
like
was
perfect. Yeah.
And I'm like, play to your strengths here.
Yeah.
If the CGI isn't up to scratch and isn't
man.
your thing, don't dedicate 3 whole scenes to back and forth dialogue
they
with another
did.
character. And they did.
It's basically Jar Jar Binks,
I mean,
old man Jar Jar.
imagine
Right.
if they had, you know, just his voice or an over the shoulder
Perfect.
and you saw the side of his
Perfect,
face, or
perfect.
just or there was a hologram.
Hire an actor.
Hire an
That
actor.
kinda looks like him. I
Well,
guarantee
no, so
there's an
so we'll
actor
say
that
the
kinda
actor
looks
that
like
plays
out
him
there.
looks a hell of a lot like him actually, but they still were like, and let's go ahead and put the CGI face
Oh,
on
so they
him.
decided to do that.
Like
Oh,
it was a
boy.
choice, but the actor they have, it's the closest you can get.
Is the
That
actor
guy
doing the
looks like
voice?
that. I don't know if
No,
he did
Peter.
the voice.
The actor that's playing.
Yeah.
Right,
Tarkin?
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but it really do you guys do Photoshop at all? Are you
Yes.
Photoshoppers? You ever like Photoshop too much and forget what reality looks like? I think that happens to
sometimes.
people when they're making these films.
The
they
Uncanny
forget,
Valley, is that what
and
you're
they
talking
don't
about? Yeah.
realize that they slipped into it, and they can't because they're too close to it now.
Yeah.
But I immediately was also Leia, just the eyes. Immediately,
Oh,
I'm like,
God, Leia was like, did
can't.
not work for me.
But
at
I think
all.
it did because it was the reveal that you saw. You saw her from the back. You realized it was the young
I'll
her,
give you
and
this,
that was enough.
and it was quick.
Yep.
It was
enough.
quick. It's like, you know
Yeah.
what? They didn't nail
Yeah.
it, but how fucking cool. Our theater cheered, right? Like, we see
Yeah.
Leia.
Yep.
The moment works. What if we had 8 scenes with Leia where they, like, discuss, like, lots of
Yeah.
things?
Well, I mean,
that would have hurt.
Maybe, like, as much as we got of, like, the weird thing is like that first moment with Tarkin, like when you fully saw his
Guy
face.
Henry played Tarkin.
when
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Fix,
Guy Henry, that's great.
Fictionaries.
Thank you, Fix. When that first moment with Tarkin, that reveal that it's a CGI Tarkin, I was like, that doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
It really doesn't
The mannerisms,
look bad.
like they actually got
but
Tarkin.
but we got
Right.
that exact quickness with Leia, and
Right.
it looked awful to me. It looked like a video game. It looked like Battlefield. It
Maybe
looked like
it's
some
also the
kind of video game
anticipation,
to me.
though. It's like you see her from behind, you're like, oh, well, let's see what they do with Leia. Like, after the Tarkin thing.
Yeah.
Like, maybe if we had only seen that. But Tarkin, specifically, when he was talking and moving around, looked like Dobby to me.
It's just exactly. I just don't think we're there yet. And like, a lot of people will probably say like, kudos to Lucasfilm and Disney for like
trying.
taking a
That
big
Matt
chance.
Hooper says Leia was not CGI, and I feel like that's not true.
That's absolutely not true. Totally CGI.
Yeah.
But it's just like I just think when there were some scenes where the Tarkin CGI character was in the room with like another old guy, and it's just like it's like, man, they were really forcing us to be like, that is a CGI character, because the old guy is like skin, the old actor, like it's just they can't get it perfect yet. It's just so your brain is having a hard time.
I watched it and I was like,
computing
they'll do
it.
this again in 10 years. And 15
And
years
it'll look
they'll
great
update
probably
it, right?
in 10 years, but like it is kind of like pretty like ballsy for them to do that.
The only problem is Tarkin is so integral. He's so
you have to
important
have him
as
in
the
this
Grand
story,
Moff behind
absolutely.
this that he had. Yeah,
I say
Absolutely.
hire an actor that looks like him. That's it.
Well, so
They're
and
doing
if
that
you
for
think
young
about
Han Solo.
it, exactly, and like you know what, that was the right choice there. It's real tough because people annoyingly would see a different actor and they wouldn't connect that it's Tarkin. So I do get the
Right.
frustration. The person next to me in the theater, I heard them when it was Tarkin. I heard them leaning to their friend and they were like, "Is
Kyle
that?"
Katarn is the real thief of the Death Star. It's true.
Well-
Kyle Katarn was the video game, right?
Yeah, he's like he's
Force
who
Unleashed? Is that Force Unleashed?
Cassian is based on.
Yeah.
And Jyn Erso is based on Jan Or's. But I heard someone lean over and think Tarkin was an alien. They're like, who's
dear.
that alien? What kind of alien is that? I was like,
right,
oh man,
okay.
that's real
That's
distracting.
Peter Cushing.
Yeah, they come from
Dead
planet
Peter
Cushing.
Yeah, Planet Cushing.
yeah.
Cushing is a
Anything else not work for you guys in this movie?
I didn't like R2 and 3PO. I love them so much, but it's like we did not need that moment.
It would have been
Well,
the one movie without them,
Do you
but
know-
it would have been okay.
No,
would've been okay.
they're putting it in there so they are in every single movie because they're
Right.
the only two characters that
It's
are
like
in all
not
of
a
them. So-
reason to just throw
Well,
them in there. I feel
Bail
like.
Organa had a glimpse, one line, had a little bit of a delivery, and technically they are in possession of Bail's in possession of the droid, so them being there made sense.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, but it's like whatever 3PO said wasn't like good, or it didn't like.
They're going
propel
to
the story
Scarif?
at all.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. It's like
Yeah.
what? Like at least give them some sort of like
Or
expository.
even flat out say like, all right, we'll use these droids. Like,
Yeah.
like make it part of the
or
story.
like like they're in the background, like, and he's like, I don't worry, I got this, and
What
they're just back there.
Chopper was in the
fine.
background actually. but-
Was he?
Yeah.
What I did notice as well, though, all these X-wings going up into battle and no astromechs.
Oh, huh.
Well, there was a not what is like R5D4. There was like an R5D4 type.
The red
Was
unit.
there?
Yeah,
saw the
because there
red
was
one. Oh, man, I
there was a
didn't see
shot
it.
of an X-wing that where you could see like the weird like kind of coned head.
Because that was always my favorite parts when Luke was in the sky, like the communication
Yeah.
that they had
Right.
between.
Maude, you loved this movie.
I really did. I thought
I'm
it was
going
a
to
lot better.
ask you, what is the one thing that you feel like could have been a little better?
I think Forrest Whitaker's acting. But I think, if they just changed the exposition in the first half of the movie, just to kind of give everyone a little bit more grounding and filling out would help. A bit more backstory so that the care factor went up. And I didn't not like a lot of things. I think the CGI sat with me a little bit weird. But a lot of people are saying they disagree. A lot of people are saying that the Tarkin was absolutely fine
Yeah,
and that
it's-
we're all
it's-
for
you know,
it.
there's a
for some
divide
people,
for
they
sure.
and for some people, they have a sensitivity to that.
Yeah.
That like they can see it or they don't.
Yeah.
So I wish I was not one of those
Me
people
too,
that
man.
can
I
see
would
it.
trade my
Yeah.
fucking like Uncanny Valley shit
yeah,
for
dark,
not
dark,
knowing that was
whatever.
CGI at all. I would totally trade that.
Yeah, I'll side with you. I think for me, it's just the character backstories could have made this movie into like the saddest movie
Yeah.
I've ever freaking seen.
Yeah.
And it just like didn't hit it. It felt a little bit more like when the History Channel tells you about the
Yeah, they
the events
sugarcoat it.
of a thing, and it's just kind of like we're just gonna hit these plot points. This is
Yeah.
what happened here, instead of like when you really dive in
I agree.
to one story like Saving Private Ryan, like Imitation Game, like any of these World War II movies where they zoom in on the characters and you live with them for a little bit. I would have loved to just see them eat dinner.
Yeah,
Ponda
Ponda
Baba
Baba.
and Dr. Evans.
Another scene not necessary at
I
all.
loved it. I loved it.
It was a little bit like we should go to a different planet now. Like
Yeah,
like, it was
yeah.
a little,
But like I think the moments of fan service done well were the blue milk.
Yep.
I loved the game that they were playing
Yep.
in the prison. That was like the not like holographic,
holographic
version
version?
of it.
Right.
That was cool, and I really liked. I've got a bad feeling about it. Shut up!
Shut up,
shut up.
Don't say
Like
it.
I was like perfect.
Yeah.
Like, you leave those three things in. That's all you need. Get out. Get Ponda
Sebastian
Baba the
agrees
fuck
with
out of
me.
there.
Nah.
Get R2D2 and 3PO the fuck out
Testicle
of there.
mouth. I'm
Like,
any day.
I don't need no member berries in this
Testicle
shit.
mouth? Is that his name?
He literally it's Ponda Baba, but he looks like
Oh,
he's
I
got
thought you were saying this guy.
scrotum
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a mouth.
yeah,
What
yeah.
about that other little alien that we saw who looked
I
like
love
a walking
that little
scrotum?
guy. Dude, that was Warwick
That guy
Davis.
was- oh, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, I love him. Love him, love him, love him.
That's
Love
so
that little
great.
guy.
That's great.
Okay, so that's our negativity. What are our wins? What did this movie freaking nail?
Space battles, Darth Vader.
Amazing.
Brand
Amazing.
new tone. And
Yeah.
a new genre within a Star Wars franchise. while
Opening up
successfully-
Star Wars.
Opening crawl. I think maybe if we had an opening crawl, then the need and the,
Yeah, that
the
was
exposition.
jarring.
Oh,
Wasn't that jarring?
Yeah, and
Shit.
everyone was like, da-da-da, da-da-da, and it just went, ba-da-da.
Yeah.
Like,
I was watching it with a group of people that were like, "There's no opening crawl," and I was like, "Oh, weird." And then when it was like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was like,
Right.
"Are they wrong? What's going on?" And
See,
then it was so jarring.
I was fine with an opening crawl because of that. I was like, there's our context. We're still in Star Wars. I'm there now mentally. Thank you for showing me that. I don't need opening crawl that's like, did you see the prequels? You know, like a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Like, what if it just said that?
It also, you know what else was jarring for me was when the Rogue One title came up and that music came in that was not the Star Wars
Right, because
Yes.
the Rogue One theme.
I was
right.
like, whoa, this was like, I was talking to my friends, and one of my friends was like, this is like a fan film. Like, we just saw the opening to a fan film.
Right,
Because they
because it's
can't
like-
use the Star Wars
Right.
music, you know?
But it
Yeah.
kind of was a fan film. It definitely felt like fan films are always these side things. But it worked for me. I'll say specifically the music. Michael Giacchino.
Giacchino
he
did a
kills
great
it
job.
every time I ever hear it.
This is what I will say really quick about Giacchino. Like, sounds like a John Williams score, and that's great, and that's exactly what they were going for, and all the temp music used on this movie was absolutely John Williams music. And Giacchino had, like, no time to score this movie at all because Desplat almost scored it. But,
That's right.
But man, I didn't come out with like when I came
The
out of
score
Force
that you remember?
Awakens, Rey's theme was
Yes.
in my fucking head.
Yeah.
And like there is no theme in my head.
You know
from
why
this
that
movie.
is? Because they moved this movie. We go to freaking like 6 planets in this movie
Yeah.
real fast. They're just moving too fast to like live in a theme.
We
In
don't
fact,
get a theme.
The
yeah.
only time
Leia's
where I-
theme has like a ding.
Yeah.
The time where I really, really liked what they did with the composition was when we first saw Vader and they slowed down the Imperial March.
Yeah,
and
that
gave
was
me
cool.
goosebumps.
That was cool.
But you're right, because it's nearly but not quite. It starts off like it will be the traditional Star Wars theme, and then it changes. That's why it's hard to kind of remember because
Yeah.
we're so ingrained with
Right,
what it was,
I think
we
it's
don't
just
have what
like it
is.
needs a couple more listens too. I think he nailed it in terms of sounding like Star Wars. It just, yeah, you're right. There's no earworm in
Yeah,
it.
unfortunately, but it's still a great score. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, the biggest win that this movie has is that it's everything a prequel should have been because it did a real
Yes.
specific thing.
Yes.
Obviously there's a million reasons to hate on the prequels, and here they are. No, the one
Watch the Red
thing-
Letter Media.
Exactly,
Just link to
yeah.
the Red Letter Media.
The
video.
one thing that this movie did, if it had one purpose as a prequel, it's to adjust the context for the movies that follow in a way that heightens and makes them even better. And now, go watch A New Hope right now and be like, fuck, Leia, you have to, like, succeed.
Yeah, it makes-
Do you know how much
heightens A New Hope
shit
so much.
happened?
Yep.
Like, the first moment of A New Hope now is, like, high stakes.
That's why she was like fighting so hard against Vader and she was getting tortured and
Yep.
she wouldn't give up.
Yep.
Right, and yet we never knew, and now
Like,
we
oh,
have
she's a
this,
badass.
and it nailed that feeling where I do want to go watch A New Hope again, even though I know
Yeah.
everything that happens, because emotionally now I'm so charged. I'm like, Bodhi connected the things for
Yep.
this, guys.
And then you see Han Solo, who's so nonchalant about the entire thing, who hasn't really experienced
Right.
what a
And he's like,
rebellion is
hokey
all
religion.
about. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's like you got a taste of what
dude,
believing in the Force
You are
does.
playing in a big thing
Right.
here.
You know what's fascinating about that? A lot of people thought Cassian was going to be the Han Solo of this movie, but he's kind of the opposite. Because Han
thought he
Solo
was
comes
too.
in that way,
Yeah.
like, oh, I mean, is this a big deal? It's like when people aren't political in our world, and they're like, whatever, everyone's bad, it all sucks. And it's like, no, if you, like, live it, you realize, like, no, there's shit, like, real bad shit going on in the world. And Cassian's little speech there, I totally
he
sided
yelled
with
at
him.
him-
I sided with
Yeah.
that. I was
He was,
like, you
like,
know what?
fierce, yeah.
He lived this, so
Yeah.
maybe listen to the guy.
Yep.
So that totally just as a prequel that makes the following movie better.
We're talking about is
was
Krennic
amazing.
Snoke? I don't think so, guys.
There's a little rumor that Krennic could be Snoke. There's also weirdly a rumor that Tarkin could be Snoke. And like some
Dude,
people
Tarkin
are like,
died on the Death Star.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't be surprised if we haven't met Snoke.
Yeah.
If Snoke is not someone that we've
I
seen
think
before.
he's an
okay
ancient
with
entity.
Rogue One. I think they've even said that Rogue One will not connect to any of the new trilogy at all, right? Haven't they said that?
Well, that's like it's a standalone movie, so it's an anthology. So this
Yeah.
is all we're going to get from that. Whether any storyline or character connects,
Yeah, I guess that's yet to
to
be
their
seen. Maybe it's
discretion.
just a tease. I will say this too. This movie made it like feel even better that we're getting a new Star Wars movie every year into the foreseeable future. I think that's this isn't gonna like go. In fact, Rogue One for me doesn't even kind of enter my kind of like top 5. I don't think. Well, maybe it's in my top 5, but because there isn't much. to
Yeah.
go
Right,
for.
right.
But like
in the top half, at
right?
least, yeah.
I mean, it has to at least.
Yeah.
But I feel like, obviously I love Empire, Force Awakens. I mean, Jedi, A New Hope, whatever. But it's like, Rogue One being like a Star Wars story, a standalone, a movie you could just put on the shelf and be like, oh, I'll pop this in. Like, you know, I'm okay with there being just like handfuls of these movies that are just kind of like in the Star Wars universe, not necessarily fully connected, but like I'm in for this fucking ride. Life is good right now for a Star Wars fan.
I'm happy about that one as well.
Yeah.
I think we need a little clarity in the comments as well. People asking who Bail Organa is referring to when he mentions a girl and a man.
Surprising that we needed that, but I've heard this question too.
Yeah, people are saying, is it Ahsoka Tano? No. He's talking about his last Jedi friend who's in hiding at the moment. Obviously, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine. And then when it said, do you trust this woman, do you trust this girl? And he said, with my life, that's Leia.
So
he's obviously trusting in Leia
his own
to
daughter.
play the position, to retrieve the plans, and then to pass on that message to the
daughter. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the way that it's like a real man is the one that daddy is the one that raised you. Whatever.
Right.
Cool. Huge wins for this from this movie.
The humor. They finally nailed. Well, not finally. I think they did an all right job in Force Awakens. I didn't particularly like it when Finn was the funny one. But in this one, K2SO was the and Chirrut, great.
Chirrut was surprisingly funny.
Oh my gosh, when they're bagging him and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Yeah. Oh my gosh, so good. So I think they nailed the humor in it. I think they nailed the tone in it. I loved the ensemble. I think that they did a great job working off each other. And I loved that it was contained and they're not hanging huge cliffhangers over our heads, and they're keeping things like who someone's father is or who an actual character is, like in the dark. And I like that it's
kind of refreshing to see like a Star Wars movie that isn't being polished into a franchise or like. I mean, it's kind of like. To say it's not a franchise, I mean, it obviously is, but it's like, it's nice to know that, like, we don't need to get, like, the bleed dry sequels out of this.
I watched both of you guys talk about Force Awakens, and you guys had really consistent frustrations that I could tie all back to the fact that this movie is going to have sequels.
Yeah.
Like, most of your guys' beef was like, well, that's for another movie, or that's setting up.
I didn't like
and
that as much.
I totally agree with you. This movie is a standalone little piece of, like, you know what? If it wasn't a Star Wars movie, it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well,
Like, it stands alone.
I kind of felt like I was going to come out of it thinking, like, this didn't have to be a Star Wars movie. This could have been, like, a cool sci-fi, like espionage.
But it felt like a Star Wars movie, and that's what I loved about it.
Yeah.
It's not,
But it also added depth to what feeling like a Star Wars movie means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, before it's like, oh, does it feel like a Star Wars movie? It's like, does it sound like John Williams music?
Yeah.
Are there daddy issues?
Yeah.
Is there a lot of desert stuff? Yeah. Now it's like what that feels like is like, is there not grit, but like, is a lot at stake. Yeah,
Matthew Cody says, loved how Vader's eyes were red. I noticed that right away and was like, yes!
So you can kind of see Vader's eyes in A New Hope, too.
Yeah.
For part of it.
And they're red. Like, they're not, I don't think they're red again.
Did Vader have hair when he was in the tube? No, he didn't.
No.
Oh,
man, I was like, dude, did we see Bail Organa before we saw Vader in his back to tank in his house?
We saw
because I was
Bail
like,
first.
listen, I fucking hate the prequels. And I was like, oh no, this is the first time that they're like fully acknowledging the prequels in a Star Wars, in a new Star Wars movie. And I was like, no, I just thought, because like in Force Awakens, they did so well with just kind of going around the prequels, but it's like, oh no, it's Jimmy Smits, it's Bail Organa, like it's prequels are canon forever. and then it like went that moment, but like I dealt with it, it was fine, and I love Jimmy Smits, so it's great. It was whatever, and I knew it wasn't going to be as bad as the prequels, but that moment when you saw Vader in the back to tank, I was like, don't be Hayden Christensen. Don't be Hayden Christensen. Please don't be Hayden Christensen.
Steve, it was Hayden Christensen. I don't know if you noticed that.
Special
so much makeup.
Too.
Yeah. Here's my favorite part of that scene. All the build up to the guy in the cloak or whatever, and he's like, who's it gonna be? And it turns around, he's like,
oh yeah, he's just a servant.
Hey, what's up? Central casting extra here.
Someone's here to see you,
Talk about some of the things that was in the trailer that we actually didn't see in this movie at all.
I really quick for you guys, what Maude's bringing up is one of the most fascinating things to me. The trailers are extremely misleading for this movie. So much of the trailers are not in this movie. Not only not in the movie, like they were cut out, story altering. K2SO and Cassian and Jin are running with the plans and stuff. He's long dead by that point when they actually have the plans. What do you think about that choice to purposely mislead us?
I don't think it was on purpose. I think that they had to reshoot.
it was that many edits?
Yes, I think they had to reshoot
Interesting.
it.
So they've claimed both. They're like, oh, well, something didn't make it into the movie, but there's been hints that maybe they're like, yeah, we might have shot some stuff that we knew we weren't going to use. For instance, the Death Troopers, I think there are in the water walking behind Krennic.
And Krennic does the cape over the water.
Right,
Did you see
and so
that?
I think they said they knew they weren't going to use that. It was just more to set a tone that they were trying to do.
That's
The
annoying.
trailers.
No, I don't like that. That's not the way of the Force.
Yeah, it's kind of not the way of the Force.
You know what? It's kind of the thing where I don't like being misled, but I like the effects of it. Where it's like, you know what? I did not expect K2SO to die in that moment. I was like, oh, he's in another scene, and then he didn't, and I was like, oh, my little heart.
Well, when you see that first blaster hole, you're like, oh, it's curtains for him. This is it. This is the scene where he dies for sure.
Yeah.
Man, so here's another thing that's really great about that death, by the way. Droids are vulnerable. Droids we care about are vulnerable. They always have this feeling of like, oh, they'll be in every movie now.
Yeah,
Or they're constantly there.
you're good to go.
Yeah, I wonder if that droid will be in the background. And it's
Interesting,
like, no, he
though, that
dies.
the other Imperial droid that was identical to K2SO got shot with one blast and died, and he took 90.
It was, I think, maybe
it's like
more
the
in the
Boromir
chest.
effect again with 90. It's just still.
Well, that's kind of cool, actually.
Someone asked if you need to see the other movies to enjoy this one.
Yep.
Yes, you
But I
need to
don't
see.
know if
I would
you
say you need to see
need
A New
to.
Hope.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
That's the only one I would say.
I think I think it's kind of fun and unique if you've never seen the classic trilogy to kind of like watch Rogue One and then watch A New Hope. That would be
It
like
does
a
make you
unique
want to
way
watch it in chronological
yeah,
order.
it'd be interesting to. I'd like to talk to someone who has never seen them and sees Rogue One first.
Yeah, I have a
That's really-
fetus you should meet.
Really quickly, in the comments, everyone was bringing up a lot about the black saber because it was mentioned. I didn't catch on. I've seen it twice. I didn't catch on when they mentioned black saber.
Oh, did they? I didn't even notice that.
Someone
Okay,
said a black
alright.
saber.
And then so in the Clone Wars, they've like manufactured a kyber crystal, which is just basically dark energy.
And
so they were talking about the black
Do you see it in
saber.
Rebels or Clone Wars cartoon or something?
Clone Wars, yeah.
Oh, you do
yeah,
see it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it is an actual thing. And I think even the Mandalorians were able to, they used that technology as well.
So speaking of connections, like little Easter eggs and stuff to the Star Wars universe, I got a list here of just some things I found interesting. I just want your guys' reactions.
Let's do it.
So,
all right. So first off, was that Twilight hologram dancer Ula?
Yes, yeah.
Was that
yeah.
actually
Yeah,
her?
That's
yeah.
fun.
It looked to be.
It looked a
exactly
lot
Lula.
like her,
Yeah.
which I love. Then, like,
Like
what
a
if she's like a
16-year-old
famous
version?
she's a famous sexy dancer in their galaxy?
And then she got
She's
eaten
like
by
the
a rancor.
Shakira of the
yeah, and then could you imagine? It's like Jabba kidnaps Shakira, and he kills her.
That makes that scene so much funnier. It's like, ooh, Shakira's here.
Yeah. Oh no, Shakira! La, 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 la. Okay. Also, so
Black
we got.
Saber was in the data room. It was one of the codes.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, that's right.
I bet
Yeah,
all those
just
codes
And
are
Pax
interesting.
Aurora,
Stardust,
a bunch
that's right.
of different.
Yeah,
yes.
They always
That's
do that
right.
when they have a list. You got to pay attention to the list. Okay, so Faux Porkins we already got.
Thank you,
was Red
Peter
5.
Bond
Yeah.
Hansen.
Mustafa we talked about. Admiral Radis. So is
Yeah.
this the predecessor to Akbar?
Yeah, so in
Must
this,
be,
while
yeah.
he's the Admiral Radis, he was only General Akbar. So then he became the
Interesting.
Admiral. Yeah.
So because he
also-
dies in that awesome fucking stuff.
Do Mon Calamaris turn white as they age or something?
Or
I've
maybe
never
it's
seen-
racist?
I've never seen a white
yeah,
Mon
well, one's like
Calamari
a
before.
goldfish, and the other one's just like the clownfish.
Yeah,
a
but it's weird. It
oh,
was
no,
like
wait, not a
all
clownfish.
white Mon Calamaris there, though. Like I didn't
What I
see,
like though,
like, a
they
red
weren't
one at all.
CGI. They used
Yeah, you know what? I think it was, but it was like it was a puppet with
Combo.
CGI on it, or maybe it was CGI meant to look like a puppet because it definitely
Interesting.
wiggled.
it looked
wiggled
practical.
like a puppet,
it
but
looked practical,
had-
and even like it looked
I'll
like
say
a
it
glove.
looked practical, but I had my same little like trigger went off like something's up here.
There
So
must
I wouldn't be
some sort
surprised
of
if there's a little.
enhancement CGI
What
enhancement.
other
It
ones
looked
did
great,
you
though.
have?
Okay, so this is more just a connection to the politics of it. The Senate still exists in terms of this movie, which is interesting because the Empire's in place, and they're like, oh, the Senate's doing this. In A New Hope, the Senate is immediately like undone,
Yep.
and it seems like, oh, this is the last stand of
Sounds
like
like
the
the
Senate.
threads were being pulled. in
Yeah, and this
one.
is kind of the final like straw of that.
Cameron says people started clapping when he showed up on screen, and I was like, "He's not Akbar, you dumbass!"
That happened in our screening too.
Yeah,
It's
it's like, who are you clapping for?
Maybe they just like Mon
Mon
Calamari,
Calamari.
yeah.
Yeah, like you're going into a trap, and it's like that's not the quote. All right. Anyway, so the stormtroopers were still terrible shots. In fact, they were like in Force Awakens, the stormtroopers kind of became real good. This they were a little closer to A New Hope
Yeah.
level of missing.
What does
a
that
lot.
mean? Did they just hire a bunch of?
I'm telling you, there's a lot of radiation in that atmosphere.
Well, if the prequels are like definitely canon, then like I guess they're clones, right? Like a lot of them are clones, probably.
Not by that point. I think right. they've stopped being clones.
Like, what happened
by then?
Why is there any canonical explanation of why there aren't clones?
They aged.
Yeah, they
The
stopped
clones
making the
got-
clones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were old.
Yeah.
But, like, why didn't they just make new ones? Why do they keep making
No,
clones?
so that was part of Palpatine / Sidious's plan. He created 2 wars, and he created the clones, which were the weapons for one war, and he created turned the Jedi against him for the other war and put them against each other. So that was like the phase done. When he became in a position of power and the Emperor in a totalitarian government, he didn't need that army anymore.
Even in the cartoons,
drones,
a lot of the clones are. It's like interesting to be a
Droids.
clone still. Like, oh, that's
Weird.
still
I
a
wonder
clone.
and they're
why
all
they would
old.
stop
Yeah.
making clones.
Well, the
didn't need them.
Genotions maybe
Yes.
stopped making them?
Oh, maybe there was something happened with those guys.
Right.
No, they were made on
Or was that?
what starts with K? Come on, the complete ocean planet.
Cool.
usually
Oh, yeah,
have
with
it.
those weird alien
Yes.
people. Yeah.
I'll point out real quick, General Dodana, who's the white-haired
Yes,
guy,
yes.
was in it again, but I don't know if you guys noticed, that's Barristan Selmy.
I didn't.
Yeah, I was like, oh, holy crap.
That's cool.
Barristan. The shots at the end of the movie, some of them are exact shot-for-shot recreations from A New Hope.
Yeah,
Which
they're-
totally
Owen
felt
was
right.
saying
Yeah.
that there were actual stormtrooper dialogue reused.
Oh, that's cool.
Like-
There was definitely dialogue reused in the Red Leader, or in the Gold
Yeah,
Leader
but
part
like
two.
stormtrooper dialogue being reused is like it's kind of cool,
Camino.
but also, like,
Thanks, guys.
weird.
Camino.
Right.
Yeah.
Like why would like stormtroopers from A New Hope say exactly? Why would stormtroopers from Rogue One say exactly the same thing stormtroopers from A New Hope said? Like I thought that was like I mean maybe this was Owen saying this, so maybe he's wrong, but I think that's really weird if that's true.
Yeah, it could be just like their training leads them to talk a certain way or
Yeah,
something, even though
maybe.
they talk real casually.
But it's like
actually.
exact sentence discussions. I don't know.
That'd be interesting.
Whatever.
One little choice I really loved on the Death Star when they're loading up the screen, it has white noise like in the 80s and 70s.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love
You noticed that? I was like,
Yeah,
oh man,
yeah.
that technology being
The
consistent.
holograms looked real
well,
good.
it had to.
Yeah.
They couldn't fuck with that.
Yeah, that's
The
fantastic.
Death Star window looked real cool.
Yeah.
Everything looked
Yeah,
good.
I have a whole video I got to make about how Star Wars is set in a future that has classic technology.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I love that how there's like
that's the
levers
thing
and
when
buttons.
Oh my god, our favorite guys were back where they had to the touch. They
Yeah,
had
the
to
guys with
duck
the-
out of the way of the Kyber laser.
I love
I was like,
those
whose
guys.
job is that? What short straw? And
Oh,
they're like,
yeah.
God, every goddamn time we have a warning.
like that radiation coming off that, like you get one run
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
a short straw and it's like we'll pay your family
Yeah, can't have kids.
compensation.
Unfortunately, never have kids again.
Melt.
I thought it was really cool how the Death Star like targeting computer imagery of like those weird symbols with like the Death Star like remember it was like before the Death Star would fire at something you would see like the whole Death Star window screen would have that weird blueprint like weird
Yep.
targeting thing. I love that it matches the targeting graphic design of A New Hope.
yeah.
Computer
That consistency was
like,
great.
Like, why didn't they do any of that in
It
the prequels?
makes no
It's
sense
so
how the
ridiculous.
prequels has so much
It's
better, technology.
technology. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
dude, get the flat, weird-looking, like, 70s graphic design shit going because it looked so cool.
The only thing they could explain is maybe if it's like a North Korea situation or something where like this dictatorship comes in and it like kind of
They just
ruins
wipe out the
technology.
technology?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it never
maybe.
it stops advancing and then
Sure.
it falls apart.
That's what happened with
maybe.
the
Why
clones.
not?
The clone Camino,
Right,
like
exactly.
It was destroyed. But there's a thing here. Who do you prefer, Rey or Jin? I actually do prefer Rey.
Yeah, I prefer Rey.
Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jin suffers from the same problem that everybody else in this movie does. She's fantastic, and they all are, and I don't necessarily care that much about her. And it's just she's more to facilitate the story, and that's great.
It's like
But,
you were
yeah.
right. You nailed it when you were like it's like a History Channel kind of like retelling of like
This happened. These
yeah,
things
it's like
happened.
I think Jin is really just like kind of a historical figure in the rebellion that you're just kind of like, oh, cool. Like you're not like, oh man, I fucking love like Robert E. Lee, man. I want Robert E. Lee to like be my favorite.
Right, they're not gonna go show Robert E. Lee like praying for a bit and tell her whatever. It's just like
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
he just does the thing he does.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Important characters, important story, really cool. We get to see it, but that's
Yeah.
about. That's
Those
about
are your
that.
final thoughts?
Those are my final.
What are we
Final
gonna give it out
thoughts.
of 10? Have we done that
Oh
yet?
no, I don't want to do that.
I'm gonna give it an 8 out of
not gonna
10.
do it.
8 out of 10. 8.
Really?
Yep.
I'm gonna make it worse for you. So at 8 out of 10, you can apply this to this question because this is our big question that's out there. where does this movie fall? Some people are like,
No, I won't
this
do
is
that.
the best Star Wars movie.
Wow. The reason why I find it
Christ,
really
that's
hard to
crazy.
compare, I feel like I can only compare Rogue One to The Force Awakens because it was made in the same decade, which is
Interesting.
why I could probably only say which of the prequels I preferred more than the other and rate those together, and the same with the original trilogy. I find it very impossible to compare a movie made in 1977 to 2016.
Well,
Sure.
storytelling is different. I'll give you that. So pacing is different. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely a argument there. But you would put it above Force Awakens?
Yes. It's
Above
better than
Force
Force
Awakens.
Awakens.
Cool.
Yep.
Not me at all.
Really interesting.
I love Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
I think Force Awakens is a fantastic movie.
Wow.
I don't-
Can we go cut back to a year ago? On
What do you mean? I loved Force Awakens. I've always liked Force Awakens. I've always liked it. We
He
can
liked
cut to
it
a
more
clip.
than you did, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly.
I absolutely
Yeah,
did
you
like
did.
it
You
more
liked it
than
more
you
than I
did.
did.
Yeah.
And now I like this one more than you did.
Yeah,
Hey, we
full
did it.
circle. You hated Finn. No, okay. Anyway, and so would you put it so at the bottom?
You know,
Like,
this is
above
where
prequels?
I don't acknowledge the prequels. I just don't.
Sure,
Like this is like the fact that there's like Bail Organa and a fucking pod racer engine in one scene in this movie. Like it's undeniable. Obviously the fucking prequels are canon. I've accepted it. It's fine, whatever. But I guess if I'm putting it in order, I just kind of like that it goes before A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I don't think it's better than A New Hope because I have an emotional attachment that maybe a lot of you don't have, and that's what makes opinions
Or
so
people
unique
will
and
have
amazing.
if this is their
or
first
maybe they
movie.
will have,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe they'll have a New Hope kind of feeling for this movie. I mean, A New Hope isn't like a fantastic movie, but I just feel like I don't think it comes close to how good Force Awakens was.
Okay, I get you.
I think that the space battles were really cool. I think some of the CG was great. Some of the grittiness and kind of the darkness of the movie was great. Darth Vader was fucking fantastic. Potentially the coolest stuff we've seen of Vader in
Yes.
any Star Wars movie. Agree with all that, but like I don't know if I'm ready to kind of rank it in the Star Wars saga.
I'm winging it here on my ranking. I'll say that it is better, and I get crucified for this, and I'm fine with it. Better than Return of the Jedi. I'm not the biggest fan of Return of the Jedi. I don't think
I really am.
I think it's better
I
than
love
all of the
Jedi.
prequels. But it loses me in the wrong place, and that's at the end of the movie.
It's a little hokey.
Yeah, like as the movie goes on, it starts to lose me, and
Yeah.
that's a problem that this movie had the inverse of, where it
Yeah.
actually like won me over. So I'll put it above Jedi. It can't compare to Force Awakens for me because the epic saga of Star Wars is progressed in a way that I really loved.
Yeah.
That way, the story is heading in such an exciting direction
Yeah.
that I'm in love with Force Awakens for doing that. So I'll put it right between Force Awakens, then I'd put Rogue One, and then I would put Return of the Jedi, and then all the prequels in reverse order, probably, the prequels. But I will say that final thing with Vader, and even maybe a few minutes before Vader, I think is better than Empire. Personally, I think that is the best Star Wars has
shit.
ever been.
Wow.
Just
All right.
right there at the
Wow.
end because
deal.
it's
You should
the,
read Lords of the Sith. You'd love it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's that.
Well, and
It's a whole book of
that's
that.
and you know why? It's because it's a promise fulfilled. That it's like,
Yeah.
give me the emotion that you've told me I supposedly have, and they did. I was terrified. It was a monster
Yes.
movie. At the end there, the guy literally puts his hand on the window and is like, "Help us!"
Oh my
It's like,
God.
yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
Star
that
Wars
was
should
it.
be.
Was pretty gruesome and ruthless.
Yeah, and
was great.
I loved that. Cool. All right, guys. So that's it for us. If you haven't seen this movie, you're insane for watching this. But do go see it again and again. And just let us know anything you guys noticed about it and your thoughts down in the comments below. You can hit us up individually on our socials.
At Maude Garrett. Two S's, two T's.
Fimo.
At Steve Zaragoza, and also people are asking why I'm wearing black. I'm mourning for America.
There you go.
That's fair.
Some people are calling this movie 2016 the movie, by the way. which isn't bad. That's pretty solid. Everybody dies. Cool. So that's been it for us. Thank you so much. Thanks to these guys for appearing.
Thanks for having us. It was
Thanks,
great
guys.
to be back.
Yeah,
I say we make this a tradition. Every new Star Wars movie, let's come
I'm
back and
back.
talk about it.
You know I'm
for
back.
till the earth ends.
Till the Earth ends. That's really when they're gonna stop
2018.
making them. Yeah.
Cool. See you guys. Subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
And follow Geek Bomb.
Follow Geek Bomb.
Bless, bless, bless,
Give me a
bless,
damn
bless, bless.
Kill the stream.
Bless, bless, bless.